6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Code 3. 1 Baker 7, we have a 431 at 3rd and Alameda, code 3. 630 to 90, 10-4.
Hello, my friends in Sasquatch Land. Welcome to another Tuesday night with Discover Sasquatch. I am your host, Chris, from Berkshire Mountain, Sasquatch, and I want to welcome you all to the podcast. So I hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday night. Tonight, we are going to be drawing off the bat for the Discover Sasquatch tumbler. My grandson will not be making it down here tonight because he bit it on the way to throw out the garbage, and he is all cut up and pouting on the couch, so he's not coming down. So I had to make some calls, and I brought in another guy that's going to help us out with the podcast tonight. My good friend down in Florida. You know him from the Trail to Bigfoot, Mr. Chris Connor.
Hey, everybody. Hey. I love the intro.
How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, we're doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So tonight we got a very special guest. We have another friend of mine, Alfred Santariga, the godfather of Sasquatch and paranormal. He's going to share his story from 1974. He's going back. It's actually in the Skunkape Museum in Florida, and it's actually made the BFRO reports and was investigated. So I'm very, very excited to have him tell his story to everybody. We are going to break it up into 3 sections. The first section, we're going to stop, and then Chris is going to ask a couple questions, and then we'll go to the audience and have some questions. And then we'll go to the second part, and the same deal. Chris will ask some questions, and then we'll go to the audience, and maybe I'll have some questions. And then the third part will end the night, and we'll all get to ask questions, and we'll move on from there. So that's what we have in store for you all tonight. I am going to draw the lucky winner of the tumbler. I have all the names right here in this hat. Got a ton of names from the 2 shows. I want to say thank you very much to everybody. I reached my 2,000 sub today, finally. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the support. Every little bit helps when we're doing this. We put a lot of work into this, hours and hours in the field and then behind the computer. So thank you very much. All right, we're shaking. Here we go. I wish I should have loaded up a drum roll. Okay, the winner of the tumbler, Discover Sasquatch tumbler, is Mr. Mike Morgan. You are the winner of the Discover Sasquatch.
I know him.
All right, you are the winner. You get a hold of me through discoversasquatch@gmail.com. And I will mail that out to you with some stickers. So congratulations, Mr. Michael Morgan.
Good deal.
Okay, so let's bring out Mr. Alfred, the Godfather Santariga, and let's get on with the show here. So without further ado, Here is my friend, Al.
You are out of control. You are so out of control tonight. Oh my god. That was the intro was amazing.
I didn't know
That was
coming.
amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for having me.
Where's the pizza?
Welcome to the podcast, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you for having me, Chris. Nice meeting you as well.
Nice to meet you as well.
We had a lot of interest when you told your story the last time you and Brian were on, so I had to book you up, and so you could tell everybody your full interaction that happened down in the great state of Florida.
Yeah, that was I just touched on it then because I didn't want to monopolize the whole interview. You know what I mean? Because between Brian and I, we could talk for like 3 hours. So I didn't want to drag out the interview any longer than it was. So I just touched on it. I'm glad that the people were so interested that they asked for me to come back and to hear the rest of the story. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you very much for coming back. We appreciate it.
Anything for you.
All right. Yeah. Oh, here we go again. Okay.
You don't know what kind of repercussions this is going to have for me. As I know a lot of people already call me the Squatchfather. You know what I mean? So this is going to go through the roof tomorrow morning. My phone is going to blow up.
All right. Enough of the shenanigans. We'll get serious here now. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you got going on, and then we'll head into your interaction.
Okay. Brief bio. My name is Al Santariga. I'm the founder of the Bronxville Paranormal Society. I'm the director of the New York State Sasquatch organization. Where are you? Right there, NISO. And also director of the New York State UFO Project and director of the North American Dogman Project, New York State chapter. And so we got my hands in a little bit of everything. And, we did 2 documentaries this summer. My partner Brian and I, and I'm getting a lot of requests for this particular sightings. I have a lot of sightings over the years. We have our hot spots up here, up in northern New York, and but there's a lot of new podcasters out there, and they're and I'm getting a lot of requests for this old sightings because they're new people. They've never heard it and they have new audiences. And so it's like what's old is new again, for me. Mm-hmm. So because I've done, a million of these shows and I've been doing them for years. So.
Right. Yeah. Your interaction's actually from 1974, I believe, right? Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 74. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking 47 years ago. So
many moons.
Yeah, the Skunkape has been around for at least 47 years that we know of now, right?
More than that, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just talk to any of the Native Americans in Florida, Seminole, they'll tell you. Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, let's get on with the interaction. Let's go back to 1974, everybody, and we're wearing bell bottoms and we're listening to disco music and. Roller skating's the thing, and we're boogie woogieing all night long, and Al's looking for skunk apes. So
it was 1974, and my sister and her husband had a house in a little outside of a little town called Davie, Florida. It was on the outskirts of the town. It was built just on the outskirts of the Everglades, and my cousin Anthony and I would get shipped down every year. It was like our summer camp, right? And our parents would ship us down there. And my brother-in-law was a ex-Marine, and he had a restaurant in town, and Italian restaurant in town. And Davie was a little town. I mean, it was the biggest thing that happened there was the rodeo on the 4th of July. There was no sidewalks. It was dirt streets. And it was, we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of work during the day. My brother-in-law always had work for us, but we had dirt bikes there, you know what I mean? And we'd take them out into the swamp and riding. And, we were like free, you know what I mean? And we were able to do whatever we wanted. So we had a lot of fun down there. So it all started one night. My cousin Anthony and I were hanging out late one night. I don't know, maybe it was a Saturday night, and watching Don Kirshner's rock concert back in the day. Went on like at 1 o'clock in the morning. And after the rock concert show was over around 2 o'clock, we were going to sleep. We slept in the sunroom. My sister had a sunken sunroom that faced the front of the driveway. She had a circular driveway with a fountain, and she had a 6-foot fence that went around from the side of the house around the back, but the front was wide open. And we're sitting in there, and we're just going to bed, and all of a sudden the sensor lights go on, and she had 2 big German Shepherds, and the dogs went below. Oh no, the first night it happened. I'm sorry. The first night it actually happened. We were watching the concert, and the dogs went crazy, and I had to take the dogs and put them in the garage because the dogs were going nuts. And we got this terrible smell. Oh my God. I mean, it was the most god-awful smell you ever smelled in your life. Burnt your eyes. From inside the house with the air conditioner on, it would burn your eyes. And the next morning we woke up when we were all sitting at breakfast, and I asked my brother-in-law, I said, hey, Joe, something came by last night, like 1 o'clock in the morning, that stunk to high heaven, and the dogs went absolutely bananas, And he's like, oh, yeah, that's probably the skunk ape, And I was like, skunk ape? What's a skunk ape, And so my sister goes on to explain it's the Florida version of the Sasquatch, And I was like, now I knew what the Sasquatch was. I seen the Patty film. My brother was a paranormal investigator, and he had books on everything. And I was one of those kids in grade school that every Friday when they sent me to the library to get a book to read over the weekend, it was always the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts. That's who I was. So, I knew what it was. And I was like, oh, no, that Bigfoot's only in the Pacific Northwest, It's not down in Florida, And my sister says, no, it's the skunk ape. It's down here, And I'm like, okay. So me and my cousin Anthony kind of looked at each other, and we thought they were pulling our chain, just busting our chops. So that day after we finished our chores, we went out and met everybody in the neighborhood in the swamp, because there was an area in the swamp where we rode our dirt bikes and made jumps and, went crazy, had bonfires that night. And I was talking to all the local guys, and they were like, oh, yeah, every time when it gets really hot like this summer, and that summer was really, really hot. There were droughts that summer in Florida. There was fire in the Everglades. And, and then like right after that happened, we started seeing on the news like every day, every single day, we would see another report from another town. Like it was a town next to us called New City. We'd hear a report, the New City police was a peeping Tom, but it wasn't actually a peeping Tom. When they got there, it was a skunk ape. And then there was another town, I forgot, just to the west of us. I forgot the name of the town. But so we're seeing reports all over the place about these skunk apes, from state troopers and town police and everything. So we're like, wow, this must be that time of year when these things come out, and so we didn't really think much of it. Just walked by that night. We didn't even see it. We just smelt it. A couple of nights go by, I think maybe a week, and then the same. We're going to bed now. It's like a little later in the evening, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to bed again. The dogs go ballistic. We drag the dogs into the garage so they don't wake up the whole house. And as I'm walking back out of the garage, my cousin Anthony is laying in bed, paralyzed, and he's looking at the wall in front of us, and the sensor lights are on, and you can see this giant shadow going across the wall. And I'm looking at this shadow, and I see it, and he's pointing to the shadow, he's not saying anything. And I go down like an army crawl, and I crawl up to this big giant picture window my sister had in the front of our house. And I open the shade, and I peek out the shade, and I'm like looking out with just one eyeball, and I see this thing that looked like King Kong to me, standing in front of the driveway, in the middle of the driveway. And I guess it's seen its reflection in the glass, and it did this like incredible Hulk flex scream kind of thing. And the scream was just blood curdling, went right through you. And I thought it seen me, but hindsight being 2020, you probably seen its own reflection. And then it started to walk towards the side of the house. We had neighbors on one side, but the other side was empty. The development hadn't been built up yet. It was like 2 miles square. It was a giant big square over a couple of canals to get to it. And there was still a lot of land between each house. And one of the houses had like wild watermelons growing on it. And so we run into the kids' bathroom. In between my brother-in-law's room and the kids' room, there was a full bathroom. And we went in there and we left the lights off. My sister had a black screen with a tinted glass, and we're looking out the window because now this thing is walking along the fence line. And this is where I get my height estimate from. I know that fence was 6 feet tall. This thing was head and shoulders above the fence, so I'm thinking it's like 9 feet tall. And as it's walking past the fence line, it's looking at us in the bathroom. But we got the lights off. We don't know how this thing can actually see us, but it's looking at us. It hasn't taken its eyes off of us. So then it bends down and it picks up a wild watermelon, takes a bite out of it. Just there's nothing left with 2 nubs, throws that on the ground, and starts walking towards the back of the house. Now, the neighbor on the back side of the house had a man-made lake. So what we did is we ran out to the screened-in patio. Again, we left the lights off in the patio. We went out to the patio, and as it passed the back of the house, the sensor lights went on, and we watched it. And again, as it's walking, it's turned back, looking at us, looking at it, and gets down to the man-made lake, squats down, and one hand, it cups his hand, and it drinks some water. The whole time, never taking its eyes off of us. And we can't believe that the thing is looking at us because we don't know how it's seeing us because we're in pitch black. Then it walked off into the swamp where we used to do ride our dirt bikes and have our bonfires at night. And once it got into the swamp, it just went off. It just started screaming like a maniac, just screaming. And all the dogs in the neighborhood were going crazy. And, the cows and everything was just going nuts. Everything was afraid of it. And then, the following day, my brother-in-law and my sister wake up. Everybody gets them. We're all around the table having breakfast. And we tell my brother-in-law and my sister what we seen last night. I can't believe it. The Skunkape was outside, walked around the side of the house. And we're going crazy. So my brother-in-law says, show me, So we go out there and there are like these 18-inch tracks in the sand where it walked past the house, And my brother-in-law says, oh, I'm coming back at lunchtime from the restaurant. And I'm going to cast these. I want to put them up on the bar. He had a beautiful bar in the living room, and he wanted to put these footprints up on the bar. But I guess the restaurant got busy. He never came home, and by the time he got home at night, there was a horse rancher down the street who would take tours out into the swamps, and we would work for him, during the day, sometimes shoveling shit to make a few extra dollars, or we would take tours out with his son. We hung out with his son, and we would take tours out with his son through the swamp. The horses knew where they were going anyway, And we would take tours out just to make a few extra dollars, a couple of beer, some beer money,
Yeah.
And because my cousin was 15, and in Florida, at 15 you could drive, so we go to the Winn-Dixie, get some beer, so anyway, we went. So we.
So Al, let's stop here for a little bit. Let's get a couple of questions. And Chris grew up in Florida too, so he's used to all the wild fruits and everything down there. And I'd like to get his take on and some questions for you towards the fruit and the way the Skunkape, because he had a similar situation of seeing one eating fruit and just disappearing into the swamp.
And you said this was with your sister then, right? The sighting?
I was with my cousin Anthony.
Cousin. It was a long story, and I was writing things down so I could remember everything. But I was drawing the house, trying to draw the house and see what was going on and so forth. Now, I know, early days in Florida back in the 70s, it was a lot more rural. And,
it was very rural.
Yeah. And I totally get the picture when you're, riding bikes and all the rest of that stuff. And I can kind of see and envision all that. Some of the things that no, you had mentioned the smell, and we know that's very typical dogs. But I noticed you had mentioned that it had returned. It came back. Do you think maybe it had returned because maybe there was just food in the area, or do you think that's what you have a hunch on that, or?
I think it was because there was fires in the Everglades that year. It pushed a lot of these creatures out
Right.
right to the end of the Everglades, right where. And I think it was just trying, because the way the development was built. It was built in the middle of canals. We had canals all around us, and we had to go over bridges to get to the development. So I think it was just learning the lay of the land, like where. Because we had, like I said, we had a horse rancher on one side, we had a cattle rancher on the other. I don't remember a lot of fruit trees other than the wild watermelon patch that was next to us.
It wasn't like citrons, was it, or white watermelons or citrons, or like the orange groves had the wild citrons growing in there. It wasn't anything like that, was it?
I honestly, I don't know, because I don't even know what a citron is. It just looked like a round watermelon to me. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. It looks a citron. We call them citrons, and it's basically just a watermelon-looking thing that grows in the orange groves.
Okay,
and they're not very good. They're not like a watermelon. I was curious if that's what's going on there over there.
You know what? I just called it. Being 12 years old, from a kid from New York, it looked like a watermelon to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Now you had mentioned that the house had a circular driveway in the front, and the yard was fenced.
Yep.
Did the fence? I'm assuming the fence went all the way around the whole exterior of the property.
From the front of the house, if you're looking at the front of the house, it went out on each side and then around the back. I think she had like 3 acres in the back that it went around.
So the front yard
was wide open.
Front was wide open, and that's what we're to identify.
Yeah. So it wasn't trying to hide from you. It knew you were watching it. Right? You seen the shadow at first, and then he knew after that.
We were watching it, and it was watching us. Absolutely. I believe it was able to see us the whole time we were watching it, because like I said, when it walked back towards that man-made lake, it was walking along the fence line, and it was turned, like you have to turn your whole body, and it was turned looking at us, but it was walking straight, because on the side of our house, between our house and the watermelon patch, there was like a bridle path where the people from the horse ranch would ride by our house every night to take the horses out into the swamp to do the trail in the swamp. So they always rode right by our house. So I mean,
So you think when it left, it just went out the front side and then went around, kind of.
I think the way we seen it go, it walked past the front of the house, it walked along the side.
Yeah.
So if the house was facing, the front of the house was facing north, it walked south to the lake. And then at the lake, it went east towards the swamp.
Yeah, and then when it got in the swamp, you said it was screaming.
Yeah, it just went off once it got into the swamp. I don't know why it went off. Maybe it went off because we were watching it and we pissed it off. I don't know, or if maybe it was just letting everybody else know that the boss is here. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Yeah. But it went off when it went into the swamp. You could just hear it going off, man. Scary. It's scary. Right. When you're 12 years old, growing up in the city, the last thing you're thinking about is giant monsters. You're thinking about getting mugged in an alleyway or something like that, or getting into a gang fight. You're not thinking about getting killed by a 9-foot, 900-pound gorilla.
Right.
Yeah.
So moving forward, now this thing's screaming in the woods, and I know the rest of the story. So now we're gonna jump forward a little bit. And do you think, I'm gonna ask this question before you even get into the second part, do you think that it's screaming in the woods that night and you guys watching it had anything to do with what happens next at the ranch? Do you think that, was it bothered, or do you think it was the rancher that caused the problems for the?
No, I think it was just doing what what came natural to it. I don't think, I got to be honest with you, the way this creature hung around our area, he was like he felt like it just seemed like he was the boss. Nothing was, going to stop him from doing what he wanted to do, and that's just the way it felt to me. And getting on to the second part of the story, after it went off in the swamp, it was quiet for a couple of days, and then, and it may have been, thinking about it now, all these years later, it may have been on like a loop. You know what I mean? Like walking the perimeter of its territory, because it only seemed to come back around to us, like around on the weekends. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or it was just, I don't know, going. I don't know. I'm just thinking about it now.
Yeah, you said you had outside dogs too. So was it dogs? Do you remember if they had their meal outside? Were they feeding them from outside?
No, the dogs ate in the patio, and the dogs stayed in the house. The dogs were
right,
professional canine trained police dogs. They were part of the family. They didn't sleep in the garage. They slept,
right. They weren't yard dogs.
They slept with the kids and stuff. Yeah, they were very well trained and very, very protective dogs. Very good dogs, both of them. But so
were they scared? Were they scared?
No, the dogs weren't scared, but the dogs weren't inside of the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they weren't. They were doing what you would think a police dog would do. Protect its family.
Right.
And,
they were Grizzly. With their pack.
Grizzly was the father, and Grizzly was easy 125-pound German Shepherd, and Bear, his son, was bigger than him. Bear was like 135, maybe 140. So together they were a very formidable good team. So
right.
Yeah, but like I said, they were never outside when it came around, because the only time they were outside is when the kids were outside. If the kids were outside, my sister had 3 kids. If the kids were outside, the dogs were outside. If we were outside, the dogs were outside with us. You know what I mean?
Right.
Otherwise, the dogs were always in the house, enjoying the air conditioning like everybody else.
Right. He probably wouldn't have came around if those shepherds were outside that night. My guess.
You know what? I don't think he really cared about the dogs, to be honest with you. I think the dogs were just maybe the dogs annoyed him, because when our dogs went off, the other dogs in the neighborhood went off.
And they knew the dogs' patterns already too. He knew their patterns when the dogs would go inside. They know that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know, where he was during the day. We never seen him or heard him or smelled him during the day. He only came around in the wee hours of the night. And so then a week goes by or so, and my brother-in-law comes home from the restaurant one Saturday night late, 1 o'clock in the morning. And he always brought us home a couple of pies, and we always ate a couple of pizzas. We'd all go out in the patio and eat and, talk about the day. Did you get everything done? Because he always had a honey-do list for us to do every single day, make sure everything got done. And he'd go over everything. And we're all sitting there eating. And then we heard from our neighbor's house to the northwest. That's where the horse rancher was. He had a wild stallion or Mustang or something that he gotten from Montana or Wyoming, and he couldn't put it in the stalls with the rest of the horses because it was kick and make all the other horses a nervous wreck. So he would leave it out in the corral at night, and then during the day he had a Native American Seminole Indian coming over to work the horse and try to break it, And one night the horse is sitting out in the corral, and all of a sudden you hear the horse go crazy. And then you hear the rancher come out of his house, and you hear like a 30-30 going off. Boom, 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 boom. And so my brother-in-law says, why don't you guys jump on your bikes and head over there, see what's going on? Mm-hmm. And we head over. And, of course, we knew a couple of people. We knew his neighbors, because my sister, when she first moved into the development, she lived directly across from him. We used to call it the greenhouse. It was green. And then when she moved up the block, she built the blue house that had the in-ground pool. You know what I mean? So it was a bigger house. So we knew the neighbors that lived across the street from him, and they had 2 sons that we hung out with, along with the horse rancher's son that we hung out with. So we jumped on our dirt bikes and we rode over there, and of course we run over to our buddy and like, what happened? And he said, the damn skunk ape snuck up on the back of our horse and grabbed our horse or something, attacked our horse. He said, that's what he said. Skunkape attacked the horse that we had in the corral. The horse jumped the corral and ran out to the pasture. And as the horse was running out to the pasture, ranchers coming out shooting, so the thing ran back into the cattails, because right where his pasture ended was the swamp, and the Everglades, and it ran back into the Everglades. And they called the sheriff, and the sheriff came out, and he said, okay, we'll pick up the patrols in the area at night, because he seems to get this area seems to be getting a lot of action. So everybody was okay. And then the following day, the Seminole Indian came and went out to the pasture, got the horse, brought it back to the corral, and we happened to be there working, cleaning the stalls and stuff. And we seen when he brought the horse back that the horse had handprints in its hind quarters. Like if I was to grab you by your wrist and squeeze as hard as I could and leave marks, this thing had handprints in its hind quarters. Now, I guess the Mustang or whatever it was kicked out once the creature grabbed it, and that's how it ended up getting away and jumping over the corral. But I was told many years later by other researchers in the field that they will do that to have sex with the horse.
I was going to say, I was fixing to ask you, what was the sex of the horse?
Yeah, I don't remember what the sex of the horse was, to be honest with you. But this is what I was told from other researchers in the field, which, so I didn't, who knew, I didn't know for sure, I just found that out, a couple, maybe 5-6 years ago, whatever. But, that blew my mind. But
that doesn't surprise me at all. No,
doesn't surprise you. Okay.
No, that's where I was going to go on my question for you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember. I don't remember what sex the horse was, but I remember the horse was wild. It was just, insane. This horse was like, like a demon, you know what I mean? No one could get near it except the Seminole Indian guy. But I mean, it was a very feisty stallion, or whatever it was. But so that was the next thing that happened. So the sheriff said, okay, we're going to start picking up the patrols. Said, okay. And then a week later goes by, and my sister and my brother-in-law have friends fly down to New York. I mean, from New York, fly down to Florida, and they decide they want to take them out to, either Fort Lauderdale or Miami. I don't remember where they went, for dinner and dancing and all that stuff. And so we were watching the kids. So my son, brother, says, okay, you know where the guns are. We're watching, the dogs are here, the guns are here. You babysit the kids. We're going to go out. Okay. So they went out, and then they came home late that night around 1 a.m. or something like that. And as they pulled into the driveway, of course, the dogs go ballistic. And, we see the car pull into the driveway, let the dogs out. And my sister gets out, my brother-in-law gets out, and he's like, any action tonight? And we was like, nope, tonight's a pretty quiet night, and no sooner did we say that, we hear this horrific scream, just blood curdling scream. No one knew what the hell it was. And then right after the scream, there was a cattle rancher to the east of us, I would say. Yes, he was to the east of us. And he came out, and next thing you know, you see boom, boom, 2 giant blasts from like a double barrel shotgun, And so my brother-in-law says, jump in the car. Let's go see what's going on up there. So my cousin Anthony jumps in the shotgun. He takes shotgun. I'm jumping the back. My brother-in-law's got this brand new Lincoln Continental. He opens up the moonroof. I'm hanging out the moonroof. My cousin Anthony's in the front seat. My brother-in-law's driving. And as we come out of our street, the deputy's passing us. So now we get stuck behind the deputy. So we're going really, really slow because he's doing like 10 miles an hour. He's got his spotlight to the east because that's where the swamp was. And that's where the cattle ranch's property was as well. And he's looking to the east. Everybody's looking to the left because that's where the light was at, Nobody's looking in front of us. And this creature comes running out of the darkness from our right and runs right into the police car. And it hits the police car. The police car hits him. stops dead like you hit a telephone pole. The creature goes down. It takes down like a school bus stop sign or something that's supposed to be like, you can't be bent with 150-mile-an-hour winds, like hurricane-proof sign. Well, it lands on the sign and it flattens the sign, pancakes it, and we're standing in there. Then the thing gets up, and the police car is like, it looks like it hit a telephone pole. And we're standing there, and that thing limps over to the police car. Now, my brother-in-law hits it with the high beams, so we can see this thing clear as day. We can see the deputy in the car in front of us, you know. And back then, they kept the shotguns right here. And back then, next to them,
Right.
they didn't keep them in the trunk of the car like they do now.
No, they
And
kept them like that.
right there, yeah, because they were just one-man cars, you know what I mean? There weren't two deputies in the car. And so anyway, we're looking at this. I'm looking at this thing. We're looking at the deputy, and you can just see the deputy standing there with his hands on the steering wheel. And the creature walks over, looks dead at the deputy, looks him right in the eyes, and screams and does like a hammer punch on the front of this car. And the back of the car comes off the ground. He hit it so hard. And at this point, at the very far end of the development, maybe a mile away, you can see the sheriff's car turning the corner coming our way, you know, and he's coming down the road, and the thing limps off into the swamp. The sheriff pulls up and he sees the car, says, "What happened?" The deputy tells him what happened. He says, "Why didn't you shoot it?" And he's like, "Nah, the shotgun wasn't big enough, you know." And so then he's taking our statements because I guess maybe for insurance reasons or whatever, we're giving our statements. We're telling him, yeah, we tell him what happened. At this point, the cattle rancher comes driving up the street in his pickup truck. And he's like, "Sheriff, you got to come back to my ranch. You got to see what that damn creature did to my prize bull." Now, this guy had a Brahma bull, a white Brahma bull with a big hump in its neck. The thing was the size of a minivan. Now, I know this for a fact because I used to jog that 2 miles every day. And one day, some lady opened up her gate, and she had one of those St. Bernards, like Cujo, and the dog chased me, okay? And the only place I could get away from him was jumping over this 4-foot fence where the cattle rancher was, where his cows were, and the bull. I jumped over this fence to get away from Cujo, and next thing I know, I'm looking at this giant bull staring at me. And I'm working myself around to the front of the guy's house to get to the front gate to get out, and I'm trying to keep the cows in between me and the bull, you know? And the bull is just watching me like, "What the hell are you doing in here," you know? And the cattle rancher wasn't a fan of ours because he lived on the corner. When we would come out of our street with the dirt bikes, we would take that turn so fast that not to go down on the gravel, we would go up on his grass, and we would tear up his grass every day. And my brother-in-law was always paying this guy off to buy new grass. You know what I mean? So he wasn't a big fan of ours. And the last thing I wanted to do was get caught in his corral with his cows and his bull. So I know how big that bull was. That bull was humongous. It was 1,500 pounds. It was an ounce, okay? Probably even more. Anyway, the sheriff goes back with the cattle rancher. My brother-in-law says, "Come on, let's go see what they're looking at." We go around the deputy. We leave him there. We follow the cattle. We follow them back to the ranch. And the sheriff is fanning his spotlight across the pasture, and there's this giant bull just bleeding out with no head. This creature ripped the head off of this Brahma bull. And then 100 yards down in the pasture, 100 yards the other way, you see the head. It was just a torso, like we were on our stomachs. It was a torso just bleeding out with no head. And this cattle rancher was going absolutely insane, you know. And the sheriff's like, okay, we're going to take care of this problem tonight. And at that point, they called in the state police and the town police and the county police, and they came with dogs and horses and helicopters, and they searched the swamp high and low all night, and they never found anything, you know. And that was, we thought the next day the reporters were going to come and take our statements because we were there and all this stuff. And we went to the Winn-Dixie first thing in the morning. We bought like 4 different newspapers, but there was nothing in the papers. No one ever came to interview us. It was like the incident never happened. And we couldn't understand it because that whole summer they were on the news all the time or in the papers. You know, it was always an article in the paper or something on the newscast, you know, and there's TV shows. But that's basically the whole story. I mean, there is another little part at the end that I didn't put into my report to the BFRO or to the Bigfoot, the Skunkape Museum in Florida at the time when I filled it out, because I was very leery of these people. I didn't know who they were, and I didn't want to just, you know, tell them every little intricate detail of everything. You know what I mean? But there was a part of the swamp that where we used to ride our dirt bikes, where we used to take the horses on the horseback riding the trail. There was a part of the swamp that the locals kids called the turnaround. I guess the water would come in and, you know, the high tide, and then it would go out, and they called it the turnaround. Now, all these local kids would go swimming in the canal. And it blew my mind because there were alligators in the canal. You know, there's water moccasins in the canal, you know, and these kids would go swimming in the canal. And they would tell me all the time that the alligators don't come into the turnaround. They just don't come into this part of the canal for some reason. And we're like, you people are out of your mind, because there's fish in here, there's frogs in here, there's turtles in here, there's plenty of food for the alligators. Why wouldn't they come in to this little part of the canal? One day, my cousin Anthony and I are fishing in the canal, and we're fishing, you know, just hanging out fishing. And this alligator is sunning himself, and he's floating in on the tide. And when this alligator realized where it was like his eyes opened up like this, and he ran like on the top of the water to get out of that turnaround. He couldn't get out of there fast enough. And my cousin and I just looked at each other like, what the hell was that, you know? And then one of the local kids, he was a real, like, you know, rebel kind of guy, you know what I mean? He was a wild child, and he said to me, he said, Al, I think these creatures, he goes, I think the reason why these cops can't find them when they get into the canals is that these creatures have caverns under the water, and they're living in caverns under the ground. And I was like, okay, you know, he goes, well, I'm going to look for it in the turnaround because the alligators don't come in the turnaround. So he said, I'm going to go in and I'm going to look. And he goes, you know, and he's swimming through the cattails, and he's looking, and he's diving down, he's coming up. And at one point he comes up and he says, I found something. He said, I'm going to go in. If I'm not back out in 5 minutes, get on your dirt bike and go to my house and get my brothers. He had like 3 brothers. And I was like, wait, stop. Don't go in. It's probably an alligator bed, you know, den, you know, don't go in there. And he's like, no, I'm going in. So he went in, man. He swam in, and 5 minutes came by. I was just about to start the bike up to go to his brother's house when he came out, and he was bouncing off the wall. I mean, his adrenaline was through the roof, and he's grabbing me. He's like, you got to come with me. I got to show you this. I'm like, dude, I'm not going in the water. I'm not going in that water. You know, he's, I found their lair. He goes, I came up inside this water, and there was like these caves, and he said it smelled really, really bad. You know, he couldn't breathe. He goes, I could barely breathe. My eyes were burned. He goes, but I got to show you. And I was like, wait, no, I'm not going in there. Just think about what your father would do if he woke up in the middle of the night and found a stranger in the house. He would just shoot him right there on the spot. What do you think this creature is going to do if he comes out of one of those caves that you said are under there and sees you, you know, floating in the water? It's going to jump in and kill you. You're never going to come out of there again, you know? So then after he told me the story, and I believed him because to know this kid, to know how he wasn't a BS artist. He was a straight shooter kind of guy. He was a down to earth kind of kid. You know, he was a wild child, but he was a good guy, you know? And he's like, so then we made a pact. He said, he goes, Al, you got to promise not to tell anybody, because if you tell anybody, the cops are going to come here and they're going to demolition this thing. They're going to bury them all alive, you know? And he goes, please don't tell. He goes, I won't tell my brothers. You don't tell your cousin, and won't tell anybody. And I never told anybody for like 40 years. You know, I never told anybody about it. And again, even when Ree from the BFRO reached out to me, and she's the one who did all the research on the BFRO website on that story, and she did an amazing job, and she's a phenomenal researcher. I didn't tell her either because I really didn't trust the BFRO. I didn't know who they were. I wasn't going to give them all of my intricate information. I didn't know the guy from the museum down in Florida when he reached out to me, and I realized he just passed recently, I think, as well. And
Really?
I believe he passed. Yeah, I thought I heard something about him passing like last year. I could have sworn I heard something about him passing last year. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, when we get back to New York, I'm going to tell my cousin. I'm going to tell my brother because he's an investigator. I got to tell him all about this. And my cousin Andy's like, you're not telling anybody. Like, what do you mean I'm not telling anybody? He's like, if you tell people about what we experienced down here, first of all, we're going to be ridiculed. And my family, the way my family shows love is by breaking your chops uncontrollably, okay? The more they love you, the more they will break your chops. My brother has taken a lot of abuse over the last 50, 60 years about his paranormal investigations and stuff. So he says, you're not telling anybody, and if you do, I'm going to beat your ass. And my cousin Anthony was older than me. He was bigger than me, and I didn't feel like getting a beating from my cousin. And we fought a lot of times over the years, and I always lost, so I didn't feel like getting another beating. So I never told anybody any of that stuff, except for two people. My two best friends that I grew up with, Richie and Eddie, who were like brothers to me. I told them, they believed me, and then I forgot kind of. But for like the next 2 years, I would say it was a solid 2 years after that, I had like PSD or whatever they call that. Okay, I couldn't sleep in my room because my room had a big picture window in it that faced the street, and it was a small room. It used to be like a screened-in porch, and my father was a carpenter, and he just closed it off and made a bedroom out of it. And he put this big picture window in it so my mother could look out and see the garden in the front of the house. But I mean, a creature that big could have reached in that glass window and grabbed me all the way up against the wall and just yanked me out because the room wasn't that wide, maybe 4 feet wide and 9 feet long. It felt like a prison cell. But for like the first 2 years, I couldn't, even though I was in New York, in the city, away from Florida and all of that stuff, I just couldn't sleep for like the first 2 years. I had a lot of trouble sleeping for like 2 years. Yeah.
All right. Did you ever return? Did you ever try and go back to that spot? Is that spot still there?
For what I understand now, that
it's probably developed.
The horse rancher and the cattle rancher are gone. They're all private homes. The swamp that we used to go riding in was dried out, and they built homes back there. It's all developed now. Yeah, like you wouldn't be able to recognize it like it was back in the day. I seen the thing that Ree did for the BFRO, and I pulled everything up on Google Earth, and I Googled Earth it, and the whole I mean, it's still one giant big square, but there's so many houses in there now where there used to be just a house here, a house there,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But and that's my Skunkape story from Florida.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been
Awesome.
back to my sister's house many times, but never had another experience like that.
Hey, question for you.
Go ahead.
Go back to where the impact with the police vehicle occurred.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that it was the lights were fully shining at it. I don't recall if you mentioned what color it was. Do you remember what color it was? Did you see that?
Yeah, you know what? I did. I apologize for that. I should have told you. When I looked at it the first time through the glass window and the sensor lights were on it. Okay,
that's in the house. That's in the house.
That's in the house.
Right.
That time, at that point, I mean, I really got a good look at it because it was looking straight at the window, and it was doing that like Incredible Hulk thing. And to me, the eyes were red. Now I don't know if that's just eye shine from the sensor lights, the floodlights. It could be that. I don't know. They could be self-illuminated. I don't know, because the whole time it was around the house, the lights would go on as it would pass certain parts of the house, so it always had light on it. That's but this hair itself, the skin was like grayish, grayish black, yeah, something like that, like a grayish black, and the hair itself was dark, but it had red highlights or a red tint to it. You know, when the light was hitting it, you could see a redness to it. Not that it was all red, but there was like a red tint to his hair.
Yeah, like a sheen.
Yeah, I don't know if if it had anything again to do with the way the lights hit it. Because I only seen it at night, and the same thing when it was in front of us when it banged at the police car. Again, it was facing us straight on. My brother-in-law had hit it with the high beam, and I'm sticking out of the moonroof, like standing right there, and I was probably in shock at that point, But yeah, I got a good look at it then too, and it did have canines, and it did have a conical head, and I would say the shoulders had to be 4 feet wide at minimum. Mm-hmm. I would say, again, I judged the height by the height of the fence. So I know the fence was 6 foot. It was head and shoulders above the fence. I would say it had to be 8-9 feet tall. I would say that the weight had to be, and this is just my estimate, 100 pounds per foot had to be 800, 900 pounds. It was a big boy. Well, you're not going to tear the head off a Brahma bull.
Yeah.
Unless you are a big boy.
Yeah, it was a big boy. I mean, I was always a big kid. I always worked out. I always did martial arts. I always worked. My cousin Anthony was a weightlifter. I always worked out with him. So, we were into, Lou Ferrigno and Arnie and all of those guys, And when I seen his shoulders were just so massive. And the creature was so thick. It was like, God, it looked like it was 4 feet wide and 3 feet thick.
When you think about it, have you ever heard of Bergman's rule? Have you ever heard of
Bergman's rule? Yes, right. I've heard of Bergman's rule.
Now, in Florida, a lot of times, many sightings, if the people have them, they're lanky, and then we have these ones. We have one that we've had people seeing, this one in the Green Swamp. We call him Big Red because he has a reddish tint to him, reddish fur to him, hair. Okay. But like out of this world massive. So it defies Bergman's rule.
Yeah.
Because we're south. I don't know where they're coming from. It defies Bergman's rule, which means the more south you go, the shorter,
smaller should be.
Right, because they base it upon something with the surface of the skin and the sunlight, and it makes sense. People from extreme northern states are normally taller, more hulkier people. They're more rigid. People down south, as you go down to Central America, Mexico, they're getting shorter and shorter, and that's the basis of Bergman's rule. And these things that people are seeing, from what you're describing, it's not adding up. It's not adding up. Where are they coming from? Where are they coming from?
Well, the way I look at it too is I understand Bergman's rule, and in theory it makes sense, absolutely. But if you have a wild creature that has those, let's call it Gigantopithecus genes in it, right? Just for argument's sake, okay?
Yeah.
And it's in a place like Florida in the Everglades where you have all these food sources, and this thing I'm sure will eat just about anything. Why wouldn't it get to its biggest point? You know what I mean?
Well, we have a lot of pigs.
It's not a lot. It's not a lack of food. You know what I mean? So I mean, between the alligators and the snakes and the pigs and and the fruits, I mean, there's tons of vegetation and meat out there for it to eat, wild meat.
But that would still need to be the exception somehow, because all the other animals still kind of follow along Bergman's rule. So where I'm getting at is where are they coming from?
Yeah.
I don't
know.
Where are they coming
one and
from?
one together from the story, though. There's the fires. he could have got pushed out of his element, and then he was trying to mount the horse. He could have been out. It might have been this breeding season. You know, he might have been looking to mate or something. You know what I mean? And that's when the big boys come out. The biggest boy gets the prime. You know, the prime pick. So
yeah,
who
he
knows?
was. You know, if he belonged to a clan or whatever you want to call it, family unit, he was definitely the alpha. Like I said, I don't think the dogs, whether they were both of my sister's shepherds or that giant Cujo kind of dog, the Saint Bernard down the street, even phased him. You know what I mean?
Right.
I could just see him grabbing those dogs by the neck and just snapping their neck and throwing them to the side. You know?
Right. Do you think he retaliated on the bull from the farmer shooting at him? You think that was
No,
retaliation?
I think he was in there probably trying to get a calf, and the bull seen him, and the bull may have charged him or something like that, and he was just, you know, taking the bull out because he wanted to get something to eat, you know. And then, you know, of course, we heard that blood curdling scream, which was the Brahma bull, you know, having its head ripped off. That's when the rancher came out with the shotgun, and it was definitely a double barrel shotgun because you see boom, boom, just two shots, totally different than the horse rancher who was definitely using the 30-30 because it was like the rifleman, boom, 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 boom.
Wow, there's got to be a police report somewhere on this.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. If you read everything that Ree put into the report, she talks about her uncle who was a deputy or a police officer in New City, which was the next town over. And she talks about them having two there was the official report, like, you know, there was a peeping Tom. They went and looked because, you know, back then it was still, you know, deep South, Florida, 74. And some old white lady calls up and says, I got some colored guy looking through my window. The cops are going out there to see what's going on. And, you know, they get there and they see, you know, 7-foot Skunkape dive into the canal and swim away. She said her uncle had two books, one which was an official report of the, you know, peeping Tom, and one which was the unofficial report, which was actually what they seen. Because she said him and his partner came around the house, you know, and they both had flashlights, so they came around different ways. And when they hit the flashlight, the creature was standing there looking in the window. When they seen them, it just took like two giant steps and dove right into the canal and swam away.
Yeah, she put in a report that in like 71 that there was skunk ape sightings all over the place. It made like, I don't know, 6 newspapers. Palm Beach Post, St. Petersburg Times, bunch of them, and
she lived in the next town over from us at the same time this was going on. She remembered because she was her father actually had like a boat business in Davie or a mechanic's shop or something like that, but they lived in the next town over. So she was like around the same age as me. Maybe she was 10, I was 12, and she remembers all the same stuff because when she interviewed me for the BFRO, man, we talked for hours because we were just going back. We were finishing each other's sentences, you know? Yeah.
It's a great report. I'll post that tomorrow, everybody, in the bio so everybody can look it up and check it out. Chris, you got any more questions before we go to the
No, it's just it was an amazing account. I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's almost like you need to go back and rewind and replays and things and take it in again. It's an awful lot.
Well, that's why he came everybody. He told a little bit of it last time he was on the show with Brian. And I just got like, I don't know, I forgot 10, 12 emails saying that you got to hear the rest of the story. So,
well, we have a police car getting hit. We have a decapitation of a bull.
Yeah.
You know, we have handprints on the back of a horse. And I'm pretty confident what that was.
Right. And no violent. And
I'm pretty confident what that was. Yeah.
Right. And no violent intentions of them guys seeing him that night, the first night at the house. He didn't. All he did was scream when he went back into the thing. Yeah. So you wonder if I don't know. I don't get it.
But you know what? When we left Florida that summer, we got back to New York before school started, like the last week in August or whatever. And when we landed down, like the following weekend, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law's best friend, this guy Ralph, he had a horse stable too. On the other side of the canal, there was like, houses on the other side of the canal that went to like a different town or a township or something. And he had horse stables. He had a horse stable there as well. And my sister said that right after we left, the creature broke into his barn and killed a pony. I guess it was taking a pony. He was going to take the pony to eat the pony, killed the pony. And what it did was when it broke through the barn door, ripped the door, it stepped on a screw or something, and it left a blood trail. And they were following this blood trail. This guy, Ralph, actually called my brother-in-law up and a whole bunch of neighbors, and they rounded up a posse, a legitimate posse. And they went out with guns and everything and tracked it on horses, and they tracked it right to the edge of the canal. And it was gone, but it never took the pony. But, why would you break the door down to, snap the pony's neck and then not take it? Didn't make any sense, Right. But unless Ralph heard the commotion and he came out shooting too, that could have been the only thing that ran the creature off. But, they had a screw with like blood and meat on it, you know what I mean? Where the creature stepped on I guess it was a hinge or something. They ripped the door off or whatever. And they followed the blood trail all the way back to the canal. But once they got to the canal, it was gone.
Maybe they figured it couldn't travel that fast with the pony on its back. He had to leave the pony and go.
Yeah, but the pony's neck was definitely snapped. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Let's get some questions from everybody here. That was an awesome interaction.
Yeah.
You don't hear like them too often. All right, capital letters, please, folks, in the comment section for questions for Mr. Santariga. Brian's there. Brian's in the house. Yeah, let's see this one. There he is. 26 inches long. Ron Moorhead reports a print. It's pretty big. 10 feet tall. It's a big print. Okay. There was a bunch of questions before, but.
Yeah, let's see.
Here's one. Central Florida Bigfoot says, did you look at it with Google Earth over time, decades apart?
I looked at it when I did I Google Earthed it when I did the interview with Ree, which was, I don't know how many years now, 5-6 years ago, something like that. I think the interview is like 5 or 6 years old. I'm not really sure. I don't really keep track of that kind of stuff, But yeah, I Google Earthed it, and I could see how everything was built up. And I couldn't even find the canal anymore at one of the places, because I know there was orange groves too on one side of the canal. On the other side of the east part of the canal, once you crossed over, there was all kinds of orange groves there too. There may have even been a Seminole Indian reservation over there too at one time, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you said the area is pretty much developed now.
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at it at Google Earth now, it's called Sunshine Acres. If you want to go on Google Earth and Google Sunshine Acres, Davie, Florida, you'll see what it looks like now. I mean, it looks nothing. The horse rancher's gone. It's all houses now in this pasture. The cattle rancher's gone. It's all, homes. My sister says the homes down there go for like almost $1 million now, because it's such a high end area.
All right, we got a question from Mr. Patrick Vaughn. Exactly what did you see? Well, what did you of this being in the headlights? What did you see, I guess?
I seen a creature that was very pissed off. It showed a lot of emotion in its face. It was mad, it showed emotion. It had emotion to it. It was pissed, like, how dare you hit me with this thing, but it also showed enough intelligence not to attack the car or try to rip the driver out of the car, and it just limped off, you know. And I mean, maybe because there was another car behind it with 3 people in it, and then the sheriff was coming down the other way. I don't know if it was aware of all of this stuff at once, but it showed a lot of emotion. It was pissed. It was really, really pissed. I mean,
Yeah, I find it kind of interesting that it would had have collided with the car, considering it could have fled in any direction around. But but like you said, there was a lot of things going on, a lot of lights. We know how the cops are when they're starting to move and stuff like that. And maybe it, and I don't have another word to use other than a panic. And maybe it decided it had to get out of there now, and it just bolts.
And like I said, we were crawling. We were doing like 10 miles an hour. So maybe it thought, these cars are moving so damn slow. Mm-hmm. And they seems the light pointed the other way. He's in the darkness. Maybe he thought he could just get by us. If he would have waited and let us go by, he could have went in behind us. Yeah. But he ran out in front, I guess he thought he could beat us across the road. The road wasn't that big, it's barely big enough for 2 cars on each side, But how many times have you heard stories about that on highways where they run out in front of cars to get across to the other side of the parkway or the highway when they could have just waited and walked by and the driver would have never seen them. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I seen one on a police video. I think it was out of Georgia or something, where the deputy seen the thing. He had the camera on the dash camera going, and he seen the thing run in front of his car. And he was like, "Holy crap! Did I just see what I seen?" You know.
Poinciana Parkway. Poinciana Parkway had one recently.
If they just wait and let you go by, then they could just walk across and no one would ever see them. I don't know why they run in front of cars. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. I can't figure that out. For a creature that's so intelligent, and I believe it's a very intelligent creature, to run like that in front of cars makes no sense to me.
I don't think they can see as well as everybody thinks they can. I think they have something that they bounce off of things to see. I don't think they have great sight. That's just my opinion.
And you're entitled to your opinion. I think you're wrong, but that's just my opinion.
I just don't think they have great sight. I think they.
I think they have excellent sight. But that's okay. I mean, you think they're using some kind of sonar or something?
Yeah, something like that. Just like a bat.
Yeah, it's not to say one couldn't. It's not to say one couldn't be disadvantaged or injured.
Oh,
or
absolutely.
Like that also,
yeah. Injury, old age, absolutely. Yeah. No,
old age.
I'm sure. I'm sure if it's a mammal, it probably gets cataracts too. My cat gets cataracts. My dogs had cataracts. So
okay, so let's see.
We got Cindy Celine Cotter asked, has he had dreams with that one in it since then?
No, not at all. I mean, like I said, the first 2 years were tough to be back home in that little bedroom. But as time went by and I got older and, became a teenager and that just kind of, I actually forgot about it. I literally forgot about it. Maybe I put it in, I subconsciously, I buried it for like 40 years until my brother wrote a book one time called Frank Santariga, Paranormal Family and Friends. And he asked me if I had any stories or experiences, and I told him, and then he's like, how come you never told me this? And I explained to him why I never told him. And then he called my sister down Florida to validate it, and she's like, yeah, unfortunately my cousin Anthony had passed away and my brother-in-law had passed away, so it's just me and my sister left.
All right, we got a question from Tim T. Did Al see any others besides the big one?
No, absolutely not. I didn't see any others besides the big one. But, we did find, footprints in the swamp of all different sizes. We did find the big ones like 18 inches and then the smaller ones like 12 and then even smaller ones that had like 6 inches. But we did find more. I don't know if it was a family unit of 5 or 6 or if it was just 3 walking around in circles, but we did find different size footprints, but nothing that you could cast, because the ground is either too wet or too hard, you know, but we did find footprints in the swamp.
Mm-hmm. Did you remember seeing close enough in the facial area? Did it look more human or more animal, more apish? Can you recall anything from that?
It looked like the picture that Sevilla Irwin drew for me. She was the artist for the BFRO. Like the picture that
Pull it up.
Chris is using for the intro. That's what I seen. That's what it looked like to me.
Oh, okay.
And I can't tell you how many times. Yeah, just like that. I can't tell you how many times me and Sevilla, she was in Texas, I think at the time, we had phone conversations back and forth and texting each other and emailing each other pictures back and forth to get that to look like that. You know, it was a long process, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but she's a great artist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like.
Okay. Well, here's one for you. Question for Al: with your new theme music, can I expect cannolis when we go out on investigations?
only if you buy them.
All right, BF Bud asks, did your buddy ever go back to the cavern and explore it further?
You know, no, he never did. Not that I know of. I went back the following year, again, just for my summer retreat to work. Me and my cousin Anthony went back the following year, and you know, I asked him, and he said he never went back in, and the creature had never come back around. You know, the creature. I shouldn't say the creature never. The creature came around, but not like it did that summer. You know, like you'd smell it or you'd hear it screaming in the swamp, but it didn't come out into the actual development like it did that summer.
Yeah, well, if you know, Florida had a rash of sightings in 74, 75.
Okay.
So even in our area also, we had, there was just like a rash sprinkled here and there, and 74, 75 from what I remember.
Yeah, and like I said, that summer there was a drought that summer, and there were fires in the Everglades, and you know, it wouldn't surprise me if it not only pushed the skunk apes in, but all the food source too. You know, everything is trying to get away from the fire and the smoke. It's coming inland, and then that stuff is just following the food. You know.
Yeah, we used to get muck fires.
Okay.
And the underground peat would catch fire and literally just burn for months and months. And
Wow.
it goes underneath, and it's very hard to put it out.
Wow.
But I remember those as a kid, seeing those.
Yeah, you must have been just a youngster back then.
I was born in 65, so.
Oh, okay. So you know it. Then.
Yeah.
You see,
9 to 10 years old.
Experience. Okay. The next time I seen a Sasquatch after that was I would say about just 5-6 years ago. I seen a couple on the parkway. I seen one sunning himself on a parkway, up on a rock. You know, not on the parkway, but off into like a power line cut after a rainstorm. And I seen a white one in the wintertime run across the parkway. So I think the one on the rock was about 5, maybe 7 years ago, and the other one was maybe like 2 years ago, the white one. But like I said, we have hot spots that we go to, and we have experiences all the time. But even though they're very tolerant of me and my guys when we're there, they haven't showed themselves to us as yet. You know, so yeah.
Okay.
Only through like night vision and stuff like that you could see them, you know. But it's not like you could they come into the light where you can actually see them with your eyes.
Maybe we should plan a trip to go up there and visit you.
It's not too far away from me. We can go right up there.
Yeah, I'm game.
Yeah, we're supposed to come up to see you. Me and Brian are supposed to come up to see you.
I'm game.
Soon, right?
Yeah, Brian's supposed to get us into the campsite, campground, or the whatever. Brian, Eartha Brian,
or just call Pedro. You know what I mean? See what's going
Right.
on with him and that site up there. You know, I'd love to get up there
Oh, I
and
was
check
just
it out.
there. I was just there.
Yeah.
We'll be there. It's coming. September is the month here. This is the killer month. This is when they're here.
I usually do my investigations in October, and that's when we have all of our stuff that goes down. Like at our hot spot. When I usually go there, I go in October, and that's when we have all our experiences. You know what I mean? So, but we've been there. You know, of course, we've been there all throughout the whole year. We go every now and then, but you know, and I was like one time I was being drawn there, so I was just being drawn to go back. You know, and I was like, oh, and I had like a dream that I seen a footprint, and I was being drawn to go back, and where our hot spot is. We call it a sacred site because of the way it's set up. There's giant megalithic stones in a circle with hundreds and hundreds of stones on top of them, like cairns.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a high ridge, and then beyond the high ridge is like another meadow that goes down. And I never go up on the high ridge. I feel like, you know, that's their territory up there, and I'll never go past that high ridge down over the top and down into the meadow because I believe that's actually where they live, you know. But I was being drawn one time to our hot spot, and Brian came with me that time, and we went up there. It was during the day, and we're walking around, we're looking for stuff, and you know, like I said, I was being drawn up on the ridge, and I was, you know, had I was conflicted, you know, should I go up or shouldn't I go up? I don't want to go up on and destroy the bond I've built with these creatures, you know what I mean? Yeah,
Right.
respecting their space, but I was just being pulled up there. So I went up there, and when we went up there, we found a small, like an infant footprint, you know? And I don't know, the footprint I seen in my dream the night before to me, it didn't look like an infant footprint. It just looked like a footprint. But when we were up there that day looking around, we found that infant footprint. I was like, I guess this is what I was meant to see. Be here today. Come to see this, you know. And I've had people with psychic ability. I don't claim to have any kind of psychic ability, but I just get gut feelings. I get pulled, whatever. But I've had people tell me who do have abilities, amazing abilities, that they've spoken to me telepathically, and that sometimes I hear them and sometimes I don't because I have a very active mind. I can't silence my mind. And she said they would both, like two different people from two different parts of the country told me this, and they's like, you know, you hear them in bits and pieces, like almost like in a radio transmission, you know, like it comes in and out, fades in and out, fades in and out. And they've come to my house. They've left me quartz crystal stones on my fire pit. I got a red brick fire pit in the backyard. Sometimes I come out and there's a quartz crystal stone on it. You know what I mean? Or I'll get a feeling in the middle of the night because I sleep by the wall that faces the backyard, and I got 100 acres behind my house of woods, and I got 100 acres of wetland across the street from me. And I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just feel like something is out there. Like I get a vibe that something's in the backyard, and then but I won't go look. And like something will say, don't go look, but just know that, you know, somebody's coming to visit you tonight. And I get up in the morning, I go out on the back deck, and there's like a quartz crystal stone on the fire pit. So, you know, I bring them back to the sacred location. I give them back, you know, I re-gift them, you know, and we got a bunch of spots now. Like we got 5 different locations we got all kinds of stuff going on, gifting and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. You've seen the pictures, Chris. I sent you the pictures. Yeah. It's crazy, you know. And then I had that one tie the knots in the string, and then you sent me a picture that you had the same thing happen to you, you know. Yeah. You know, I had like an epiphany this summer that I realized that they can actually see color. Because I was leaving like an orange string tied to a tree, and they would leave me like an orange golf ball on a log. And then I'd put a blue string, and I'd get like a blue or a yellow string, and I'd get a yellow like child star on a log. It was crazy. But it always coincided with the color string that I hung up on a tree. So I was like, holy crap, these creatures can see in color, you know? Yeah. So that was an epiphany this summer.
We'll have to talk about this site thing.
Yeah, no, we could talk about that all night long if you want. Absolutely, yeah.
I'm only joking.
I mean, it's interesting that you think that they're more like bats with the sonar stuff. That's an interesting theory. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they move at night. Like they can see at night, and I don't know how, because 60 yards away you can't see somebody move 2 inches.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've been out there where you can't see a hand in front of your face.
Right.
And some of these trails that we go up, like they may start off as a mining road or a logging road and then turn into like a goat trail. And then they just turn into like, a cliff face, rocks, just jagged rock cliff face. Nobody in their right mind is going to try to walk across them at night without a light,
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't do it at night, even with a light. And then these things just run across them like it's no big deal. No big deal. It just, my brother, when he lived in Connecticut, he lived in Oxford, Connecticut. He was hunting one time up there, I guess in the Berkshires, and they just had a snow. It was like right after Thanksgiving, and they had a snow, and he found tracks, and he followed the tracks. It was the first time in 50 years of hunting that he ever seen anything like this, and he followed the tracks, and he said the tracks led up to a cliff face that had ice coming off the mountain. He said, and you could just see where this thing just jumped from rock to rock to rock. It went right up over the top of the cliff like it was nothing. Yeah, he said it's mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully someday we'll get some answers.
or just more questions.
Yeah, that's all you get.
That's all you get. Absolutely, yeah. But every now and then I have an epiphany. You know what I mean? We get an epiphany, and there's a couple of old timers that I communicate with, and I bounce stuff off of them, and then they'll tell me, yeah, you're right on track with this, and yeah, keep doing that, or you should try this instead of that, and they seem to know what they're talking about because everything they say kind of works. And then I'll come back to them and say, hey, listen, I did this and I got this response. Have you ever done it? And they'll say, no, we never used that, but we got that same response using this, and it was just, It wasn't what I was using, but it was very similar, so. Yeah, but he's in the Pacific Northwest, and I'm in the East Coast, so. But they tend to have a lot of the same characteristics from all over the country. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, there's so many similarities. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, I talk to people in Texas, and we bounce notes off of each other and ideas, and it's like, man, it's what I have going on up here, you have going on down there, and the same thing with, like I said, the people in the Pacific Northwest. It's just like there must be some kind of DNA in them that they all tend to have the same tendencies, like humans.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're heading down the RF route. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, and that's a good route to start at. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely start there. So. You're gonna be surprised the shit you find.
Hey man. What just happened to us in Florida with the phone messages, and
yeah,
I still can't figure that out.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I've never heard of anybody getting phone messages while they're out squatching before.
No, my phone doesn't usually work out where we go. You know what I mean? It's so far, deep into the woods that I don't get any kind of signals or anything like that.
Well, we didn't have signal. It was just it was just doing messages.
Yeah, I mean that's insane. Yeah, it's just insane. Yeah, Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I think when we was out this past weekend, check this out. When it was out this past weekend, Tim was with me and his wife also. My phone was on airplane mode.
Okay.
I was in my vehicle and I got a text from you, Chris.
Yeah. I called somebody
literally,
this week.
And they were in the vehicle with me and they saw everything.
Yeah. I called somebody this week and I was talking to them and the phone was still ringing. And I was talking to the person on the other end. I'm like, can you hear that? He goes, yeah, your phone's ringing. I said, no, that's the ringing from calling you. And it's still ringing while we're talking. What's up? Weird.
Yeah, it's very strange stuff. Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know what's
Crazy.
going on down in the swamps of Florida, but but it's crazy
right,
stuff. Hey, man,
Hey.
you'll see. You're heading down the right path. Let me just say that you guys are
Hey.
heading down the right path.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something on my use of the Bergman's rule. It's not to convey anything that I don't believe your story or anything like that of your account. It is basically me bringing it up as people to understand that it doesn't apply to these guys. And these guys somehow, I don't know where they're coming from or how they're moving or how they gain entry and exit into our areas. It doesn't seem to be typically done the way typical animals migrate and typical animals move around, because Bergman's rule does apply in the animal kingdom and even in humans, but for some reason, these are the exception. So it's basically is to provoke thought for people to think a little bit more deeper into that.
Yeah, I've been called a bullshit artist so many times by people who bring Berkman's rule up to me all the time, and I just say, listen, I'm not here to convince you one way or the other. I'm telling you what I experienced. Whether or not you want to believe me, that's on you.
Yeah.
I don't argue with anybody. I don't fight with anybody. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. If you think I'm full of shit, that's fine. Yeah, but Berkman's rule gets thrown out a lot. Well, I hear it all the time by especially people, scientists. We're down in Florida.
I'm down in Florida. Come on,
yeah.
I definitely know that rule.
Yeah, but like I said, now let me ask you a question. Both of you guys, do you think that they actually migrate?
No.
No, I don't think so either.
No,
nobody thinks so. It's funny. The more researchers I talk to who are in the field quite a while, all come up with the same conclusion. Like I always say, they don't migrate, but they rotate in a territory.
They have a territory.
And they rotate. Yeah, that's what I say. They rotate. Yeah.
And then they got core areas. They got a certain area they get their nuts at and their mushrooms, and they got a certain area they hunt at, and they got a certain area they sleep at. They're always on the move. That's why you can't find them, because they're always moving.
Yeah.
Always moving. And that's the best part about having a gifting area, is because once they're on their routine, you know when they're going to be there.
Yeah.
After 5 years of watching this, I knew when they're going to be there. I know what month they're going to be there all the time. I know when they're going to be there every 2 weeks. And I know in the winter, they disappear maybe twice in the winter time. They're there because of the snow. But it's just, I agree with you totally. They have a territory and they're on a big loop.
Yeah, because we have so much wild game up here. The deer population is just through the roof. I mean, just in my backyard alone, we got turkeys, deer, possums, coyotes. I mean, you name it, we got it. We got black bear running through the backyard. I mean, there's so much. And this doesn't include the farms around us with the corn. And, you got corn. And what's going to go to get the corn? The deer is going to go to get the corn. You know what I mean? Right. So, and we have streams and lakes. And there's all kinds of fishes and turtles and frogs. There's just so much food up here that it's ridiculous. Why would they have to migrate? Why would you leave? Yeah. And in the summertime, you got all the wild berries, all the berries you could possibly want. So, yeah,
they gather. I mean, we had an area,
hunter gatherers for sure.
Yeah, we had an area one day that was full of mushrooms. I mean, mushrooms everywhere. And we went back the next day, and they're all gone. The deer aren't going to come in there and eat all them mushrooms. You're going to see little niblets here and there. The mushrooms are all gone. Nothing on the forest floor. Nothing. Just gone. They were picked. And harvested and taken away. And I had like maybe 200, 300 peanut butter jars that are just gone. We have looked for them everywhere, and they're just gone.
Gone.
Mm-hmm. As soon as they learned how to open up the peanut butter jars, they took them.
Yeah. Now, you know what? I got a question for you guys. I found something, to me. I took pictures of it. I got to find it. I don't know where it is. I got so many photographs and video and stuff like that. But I took pictures of something that looks like a very, very how do I say this? Raw built corral. Like I found this thing in the woods, in the middle of the woods. It was like, it looked like it went around like this, like a C, a letter C or a U, whatever you want to call it, right? It was open to one side, but it was like all logs and tree branches and everything. But, you know, I didn't know if they were using that to sleep in, to hunt behind, or to drive the deer into there as an ambush point. Go ahead, Chris.
Was it made or constructed of vegetation that was still alive?
I think there was like some wild vines in there, but it was basically old, broken wood branches that looked like they were just snapped and placed almost like railing around the circle. And like if you were driving a herd of something into a corral and close the gates behind it, that's what it looked like. But there was no gates to close. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, is this a bedding area? Is this an ambush area? I mean, you know, I was like looking at it. It's just, to me, it felt like a corral, like something you would like. Now, do you believe that they work in like a triangular motion?
Yeah.
They triangulate and they drive the deer into a certain choke point or whatever?
Well, whenever we have stuff going on down here, it's always some type of a triangle pattern that forms.
Yeah, definitely triangulate. Absolutely.
And it closes in on you.
Yeah, that's what just happened while we were down in Florida. It's the same exact thing. That first day, three of them came in and they were pressing in. But I found a corral here and I thought it was a playpen.
Okay.
It was square and it was probably about 3 feet high and it was probably 12 feet long. And it was a perfect square and it was all made out of broken branches. It's actually in a video of mine called
is it
Triangle.
Is it closed off at all the ends?
It's all closed off. Yep. So that's why we thought it was like a playpen. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is open at one end and it would look like a U or a C or something like that. And I could see, like, if you have two of them driving the deer into it and you have one, there was like a rock. It was built around a giant rock. And you had one behind that rock, and then when the deer went in, just jumped off on that rock onto him. You know what I mean? Could probably take two down at once. You know, that's what it just looked like to me. It's just corral just kept coming up in my head. This looks like a corral, you know. But I was trying to figure it out. Is it a bedding area? Are they laying down here? They hide because it was up. It was up on a ridge. You know what I mean? Are they hiding back here behind these logs? You know, because if they sat down behind that thing to lay down there, you would never see him. You would walk right by him. And like there's a ridge on one side that leads down to a lake, and on the back side of it is a giant swamp, you know. So it was just it was very strange. Again, you know, to me it just looked like some kind of ambush point.
All right. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, we are going to wrap it up.
Okay.
We're going to let these guys get on with their nights. I just want to thank Mr. Alfred. Oh, wait. I just want to thank the Squatchfather himself, Alfred Santariga.
It's too funny, man.
For joining us tonight and telling us his interaction. It was awesome.
Oh, that was too funny. Thank you. That was my pleasure. My pleasure, you know. Chris, it was great meeting you. I watched a bunch of your videos anyway, so I know who you are anyway.
They were coming out to meet you.
Yeah, cool. To meet you. Absolutely. Very cool. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going anywhere, you know. This is it. So, all
right.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right. Hang out backstage. We'll be there shortly.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris, for helping me out on the old podcast tonight. I appreciate it.
He has a pretty interesting account going on right there. It was a lot.
Yeah, Al's got his hands in a lot of stuff, and he's very smart. He knows what's going on, and he's got a lot of interactions with a lot of different creatures. So,
interesting.
You got anything to say before we cut off the air?
No.
Oh.
We'll see what Well, there'll be some stuff that I'll be putting out a little bit later on about. We had a interview with a witness over this past weekend. I haven't been sitting on my laurels, and interesting things he had said about about a hog going missing and the blood trail changing and everything like that. And he had also came across some interesting stuff that he told us. So it's going to lead to more things that we're going to be looking into. So
Very nice.
very interesting.
Yeah, we got some stuff coming up too. We're still working on using the meters and the RF, and we got stuff we're trying, and we'll keep everybody up to date on that also, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll see you backstage and shortly. I'll say goodbye to the rest of everybody.
Okay. We'll see you. Thank you. Bye.
All right, everybody. What a show. What a show. I want to thank you for spending your Tuesday night with me once again. I appreciate each and every one of you. Next Monday will be the show instead of Tuesday. My guest will be none other than Johnny Two Bears from the Encounter Brigade. He's actually getting involved with the RF meters stuff, and he's got some activity at his house, and he's got another place that he goes to, and he's got a lot to share with us. So it's going to be another great show, and we couldn't have a show without everybody in the chat and my moderators. And like I said, I hit 2,000 subs tonight, and I'm very appreciative. I mean, I work hard for this. I try to give you guys the best I can do, and you liking and subbing and just makes me want to work a little bit harder and improving on everything. So this was episode 12. It was called the Skunkape Encounter with Mr. Alfred Santariga. So thank you all for coming. And as Larry always says, get in the woods, people.